And so Jesus says to them, throw the net on the right side. I'm imagining the disciples looked at each other like, what's this guy think he is? What does he think we've been doing this whole time? And they were like, you know what? Why not? Let's just amuse this guy. Let's throw the net where he's saying. And what happens at that moment? It says that the net began to fill up. And it was like a miracle within a miracle because the net didn't rip. And it seems like the net would always rip. But at this time, it's full of fish and the net is not ripping. And I can imagine the thoughts racing through Peter's head like, wait a minute, what is happening here? Who is that guy? How does he control animals? Whatever's going on here. And this is all like, he's registering, all processing in his brain. And then John says, it's the Lord. And so it clicks, and Peter's like, yes, this is the same God in the Old Testament that called on the ravens to Elijah or called the donkey for Balaam. And he was like, this is Jesus. And it's interesting that the Bible says that Peter puts on the garment and then jumps into the water and swims to Jesus. Why do you think Peter would put on the garment to jump and swim to the water? It sounds like a little counterproductive, right? I think, as I was studying and meditating, I think it's more symbolic. This is the new Peter. We see several examples in the Bible. Old Testament, for example, Joseph. When Joseph would go through a different phase in his life with the different dreams. You know, he was a young boy, there was the coat of many colors, and there was a couple of dreams, and then he's in jail. They caught the tunic and said, this is the man that's guilty, and then in jail there were a couple more dreams. And then when he's before the Pharaoh, in the last part, we could say, this phase in Joseph's life, and he's before the Pharaoh and he's able to interpret the dream, they also put on a tunic. It's like different phases. And there's also the prodigal son in Luke 15. When he comes back home, they put a tunic on, a garment. So it's symbolic of the new Peter. This is the new Peter. It's not the old Peter.